Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today's review is all about the Discmania Essence, a beginner-ish fairway driver that requires a little bit of love and a lot of seasoning. So to kick this review off, let's go ahead and take a look at the profile for the Essence. So if you're a fan of fairway drivers that have a high shoulder and a good amount of dome, then you are going to like the feel of the Essence. This neoplastic has a good high shoulder, quite a bit of dome, and even in the other plastic types like the Lumen and the Meta that I've held, they do still have that high shoulder. They're maybe a little bit flatter when it comes to the dome, but I feel a lot of people are really going to like the feel of the Essence when it comes to the backhand grips, just because it's really going to fill the hand. Alright everyone, before we jump into the flight, when I showcased the Essence in my recent Best For You series video, everyone was saying that out of the box, the Essence in the neoplastic does fly a little bit more overstable than one that's been seasoned for a few rounds. Well, you know what? I don't have enough time to do that, so let's get to work. So now with the seasoning out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the flight. I'm going to showcase both right out of the box alongside with the seasoned throws with the Essence. I mean, right out of the box, it is a completely different disc. It is very, very straight and pretty overstable when it comes to slower speeds. Like even thrown flat, you can see it got almost no turn whatsoever. It just held a really straight line, and then in about the final third of the flight as it slowed down, that's where it started to hyzer out. Versus the seasoned flight, it gets a nice meandering turn in that mid-flight almost effortlessly. And because it did have more turn than mid-flight, it lost that really hard dump at the end. It had more of a forward pushing finish. In fact, right out of the box, if I wanted the Essence to get any kind of turn whatsoever, I either had to throw it on a forehand, which gets a lot more torque on it, or I had to start it on an anhyzer line. And even then, it doesn't really hold too long before, as you see, it tries to level out. Then it checks up and has a dump at the end of the flight. So if you want to use the Essence right out of the box, honestly, I would say it's best to use it for forehand, just because you're going to get that extra torque on it, which allows you to get that desired S-curving flight. Unless you're just like a faster arm speed player, and then you can overcome that early resistance to torque that the Essence has right out of the box. Okay. So say you've used the Essence for several rounds, or you've kind of done like me and you've just seasoned it in very quickly by bending it, running it over, or putting it into a laundry machine. Once you have put in that seasoning, then you really unlock the potential of the Essence. This thing is going to be perfect for slower arm speed players who want that S-curving flight, that know that, you know what, just towards the end of the flight, it's going to check up. You're going to have a predictable hyzer back, but it's something that you can throw flat and you're going to get a lot of decent distance out of it, because it's going to get a good amount of turn and then it'll try to fight its way out. And you don't necessarily have to worry about it turning and burning. Like, yes, when it's seasoned, or if you're a faster arm, it's going to get a decent amount of turn, but it still has a decent amount of torque resistance that it's not going to turn into an incidental roller unless you really throw it on some kind of extreme anhyzer angle. But say you don't want to just throw it flat and get those S-curves. Well, you can put it on an anhyzer line and it's going to hold that anhyzer probably a good 3 to 4/5 of the way through the flight, and then just at the very end it'll level out. It might not hyzer all the way back, but at least it's still going to try to work itself out, won't turn into that roller as I mentioned earlier. It'll flatten out and then maybe just give you even like a forward pushing finish instead of like that hyzer finish. So you can really work it in the woods on several different lines, whether it be, say, around an object, like if you had to throw around a tree like this, like 2/3 of the way through your flight where you want it to come hyzering back at the very end, or if you want to put it more on an extreme anhyzer angle and get it to hold, you know, a kind of a bending fairway or whatnot. This disc is good in the wide open, but it also makes a very versatile disc when you're in the woods because you can put it on several different lines. Like if you wanted to hit an S-curving shot, hold a turnover, you can get it to hold those lines pretty easily once it's seasoned, which is great because sometimes in the woods you can't throw it at 100%. So if you can get that kind of shot shape without having to really muscle it, that is such a big advantage when you're in the woods. Okay, so we've been to the field, but how about on the course? Well, here are a few holes of me using the Essence. For a shot like this is very wide open, so I'm just going to start it right at the basket. Know I'm going to get a decent amount of turn, and then just that little bit of a hyzer back, putting me really nice and close. So this next hole, you have a bit of a gap right off the tee, and then you want something that's going to hyzer out at the end of the flight. Well, the Essence, just power down a little bit on it, get it out into that gap, don't have to worry too much about turn at lower speeds, and then just let it have that predictable hyzer finish. For a hole like this, I'm going to opt for the forehand, mainly because I'm going to need a shot that's going to start out straight, get a little bit of turn in that mid-flight, which I know the Essence will with that added torque, but then it's going to check up and hyzer out just before it gets to that wall of trees and gets into any kind of danger. But the Essence doesn't just come in Neo, it also comes in a few other plastic types, including the Meta, the Lumen, which is the Glow, and also the Lux Vapor. And I can definitely say right out of the box, I did notice quite a bit of differences when it comes to the different plastic types. First, when it came for the Meta, this thing was very straight for about 80% of the flight, and then it would hyzer out, versus say the Neo would go straight for about 60 to 70% of the flight before then having the hard finish. The Meta would just go straighter longer before then having just a decent finish at the very end, not too dumpy. And then you have the Lumen, which out of the box flies exactly how I wanted the Neo Essence to fly. It's something where I could throw on just a little bit of hyzer, get it to flip up to flat, it'll turn a decent amount in the mid-flight before then having just a baby hyzer back, but still having enough torque resistance that as long as I don't put it on a steep and hyzer line, I could trust it on those forehand shots. So when it comes to the Neo versus the Meta for the lefty lines, you're actually seeing them straight out of the box. As you can see, the Neo rides very straight, and then just as it slows down about 2/3 of the way through the flight, it then hyzers out, versus the Meta just holds straight so incredibly long, and then just at the very tail end of the flight, that's when it starts to hyzer. And then when you have the Neo versus the Lumen, this is actually the seasoned Neo. Look at how much more turn that the Neo gets in the mid-flight once it seasons in, versus the Lumen right out of the box. It gets a lot of good turn in that mid-flight, but then like the Neo, it checks up and then has a little baby hyzer again, a forward penetrating finish. So earlier in the video, I mentioned that the Neo had a little bit more dome than both the Lumen and the Meta. Well, I think the Neo actually gets a little bit more glide than both of those as well. Now, I think overall the Essence has amazing glide, and that's one reason why I think it's going to be so popular for players of slower arms, because you can get good distance with minimal effort just because of how much glide it has. But overall, the Neo just kind of seemed to float through the air, versus like the Meta, it just wanted to get to where it wanted to go as fast as it can. Like the Meta almost felt like it was a couple speeds faster with the same rim, just because of the fact it just wasn't as floaty. So maybe that could be something for forehand players. You're going to want to take a look at the Meta, since it doesn't have quite as much dome, so it's a little bit more comfortable when it comes to those forehanding grips. And it also wasn't beating in nearly as quickly as the Neo, so it was keeping that semi-overstable flight for a bit longer, at least semi-overstable for us slower arms. For you bigger arms, it'll do all right as like a controlled turnover disc. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please, please, please be sure to subscribe and like this video. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot for the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And use that promo code LEFTY at GreatLakesDisc.com to purchase your next order of discs. Until the next one, keep banging change.